Recently, the sequel to Streets of Rogue was announced. I'm genuinely excited about this because the first game is absolutely brilliant. And I realised, while talking about this to my social circle, that not everybody knows Streets of Rogue and what makes it brilliant. That's a tragedy because you're missing out. So I made this video, and hopefully by the end, you'll not only want to play Streets of Rogue, but you'll be as excited about the sequel as I am. Because of course, we've never been burned by a sequel before. I'm sure this one will be good. Oh God, please be good. Anyway, what is Streets of Rogue? You could easily be forgiven for hearing the name and thinking it's just going to be a beat-em-up roguelike. And that would be partly accurate, with the word partly doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It's definitely a roguelike. There are randomised levels, there's a currency you can acquire to unlock things for future runs, and you can just go around beating everybody up and win the game that way if you're good enough at doing that and don't want to engage with the actual fun stuff for some reason. But really, this is like saying Deus Ex is a first-person shooter. It's much more than that. In fact, I didn't invoke the name Deus Ex by accident there, as Streets of Rogue is a very successful cross between a roguelike and an immersive sim. There are tons of different ways to achieve objectives. You want to be stealthy? Sure. You want to just go and smash stuff to achieve objectives? Sure. Want to cause a zombie apocalypse to remove all of the obstacles? Sure. Want to convince a load of NPCs to follow you and use them as either a distraction or to achieve the objective for you? Sure. Want to use environmental damage, pulling enemies from one part of the map to accidentally help you? Yeah, etc, etc, etc. Basically, the answer is yes, you can do that. In fact, really, that just scratches the surface. You may be used to immersive sims being first person and story based, but really they don't have to be. Streets of Rogue feels like a world where NPCs go about their own business with their own sets of rules and affiliations that you can manipulate for your own ends. Being attacked by a gangster? Fine. Run and find a group of rival gangsters to go teach them a lesson. Streets of Rogue is separated into sections of city, and each section has 3 floors, or levels, depends on what you want to call them. In order to complete a level and be allowed onto the next floor, you need to complete some objectives. They can be: eliminate someone, retrieve an item, either from a safe or a person, and yes, convincing them to give it to you is a viable option. Press a load of switches, sometimes within its time limit, sometimes not, and rescue someone. Failing these objectives is an option too. Want to kill the person you're supposed to rescue? Sure. The objective will fail, but it'll count, and it'll allow you to move on. Freedom, you see. Now, you might argue what I've described here is just a sandbox, not an immersive sim. However, one of the ways you can win the game is by winning an election. And your conduct, including how many people you manage to get on your side on each floor, will then be a factor. So your choices can matter if that's the method you choose to use. Of course, you can also win by either killing the mayor or threatening him anyway, because freedom. So in case you haven't got this yet, the game engine allows you a lot of freedom. So what, you say? Lots of games allow you freedom. Yeah, that's true. But a lot of games offer you lots of different ways to play but have a primary in mind. Or at best 2 that are actually fun to do. Whereas with Streets of Rogue, I've not found a way to play I didn't like yet. And this is across a swathe of different character types, a lot of which play completely differently to each other, and all with their own unique big quest. Oh, that's right. I didn't mention the big quest, did I? In fact, thinking about it, I've not really gone into the game's basic mechanics much. So let's backtrack a bit and go into the background of the game and the mechanics. It is the future. You are part of the Resistance. Your objective: to usurp the mayor of your city, who is a horrifying despot because video games. And you have to climb up the city tower, which is a bit like a cross between a Judge Dredd Mega Block and the Snowpiercer train. All the way from the slums at the bottom to the posh end at the top, where the mayor lives. The plot's very much just there to set up the world for funsies. They're the bad guy, you're not. Done. However, there is a meta-narrative throughout that in the service of getting yourself to the top, you do some pretty horrible things and can end up killing a lot of people. So really, are you any better? And in fact, you're not. Your previous character just becomes the next despot. In your next run, you're trying to usurp yourself. The cycle continues. Anyway, back to the tower. As you climb up, level by level, you go up through areas increasing in affluence, and each area has 3 floors. Each of those floors has 2 or 3 objectives that needs to be completed or failed in order for you to move on. When you complete an objective, not only do you get XP, but you'll be given an item to use as you see fit. The item's randomly chosen from what's been unlocked. Side note, if there's an item you hate, you can actually remove that from the pool back at home base. XP allows you to, unsurprisingly, level up, and you can choose a new trait once you've finished that floor. And that's where your builds start to change. You may have a certain focus in mind, but given the items and options for traits, that focus can switch to a different kind of build. There's usually an optional mission on some floors too, which will allow you to pick up some chicken nuggets, which is the unlock currency of the game. Why not? But your character will also have a big quest, and this big quest is very specific to your character. So for example, if you're a vampire, you have to kill a werewolf. If you're a comedian, you have to make a specific number of people laugh. If you're a jock, you have to destroy a number of objects. And so on and so on. You get XP for this, but if you complete the big quest on all levels, you'll get a nice unlock and possibly some improved abilities depending on your class. On the 3rd floor on each level, we'll throw a disaster at you. More about these later. Survive this while completing your missions and boom, next area time. So, let's take a look at one of these levels from the perspective of a couple of different characters and methods. You can do this in the game by choosing a seed, so if you want to repeat a level, you can. Here we go. I use the seed AA Battery if you want to have a go at this level yourself. First, I decided to be a comedian and thought I'd tell some jokes to get rid of my big quest, and also try and get some followers, because if they think you're funny enough, they'll follow you around. I found a couple of guys protecting a chest, and as they both thought I was funny, they let me steal the items scot-free. Same with these nice scientists. Then for some pure comedy chaos, I decided to release the gorilla. I came to my first objective, but the guard didn't find me funny, so I tried to sneak past and failed, losing my follower in the process. I had nothing to throw at the lethal laser trap, so I had to leave this for now. So I went to the other objective and decided to come back later to this one, assuming I didn't die. Sadly, some of the people guarding this building didn't find me funny either, so I decided to try and get some help somewhere else in order to storm the place. Went around a few buildings, told some jokes. I got some help, but not really enough. I tried a few landmines inside the building, just in case that would get rid of people, but it didn't clear it. In fact, it caused me to get chased. Thankfully, I managed to annihilate the competition, switched all the switches, and we were done. Objective complete. I found that I still didn't have anything to throw at the laser, so I tried a different tactic. I put some cigarettes into the vent, which made the guy carrying the object try to leave, trigger the laser and explode, conveniently leaving the item behind. All objectives complete, big quest complete, job done. Now it's time for a pacifist style doctor run. So I go to the first objective and knock out the guard. Then I realise I'm in the same situation as before with the lethal laser. Also, after my last run, I know there's nothing you can pick up and throw in this level except landmines, and I can't use those. I'm a doctor and that would break my Hippocratic oath. So I go to the second objective and start chloroforming people. However, there's a woman looking directly where I'd be coming from, so there's no chance of me sneaking behind her and chloroforming her. So I use the tranq gun to knock her out. That done, I can safely sneak by and switch all the switches. Yay! Done! After trying to find another way, I sadly have to use the same gas method again to get the chap with the item to run into the lethal laser. Objectives complete. My big quest is simply not to kill people, and since I didn't really cause the guy to die, that was a suicide technically. Shh. I can now safely go to the exit. Okay, time for the opposite. It's a soldier run. I can just run straight for the first objective this time, throw a grenade at the guard, and unfortunately hit myself. But I shoot him fairly quickly afterwards, then use the computer to open the doors, shoot the lethal laser sensors, no need for the gas this time, and also perforate the guy holding the item. Yeah. However, I'm not done here yet, because my big quest is to blow up all the generators. Bye bye generator. Now over to the second objective. I'll use the hypnotizer I got as a reward from the last quest to make the bouncer outside my friend, and from there in, it's chaos. Shoot people, throw mines at them, until they are all so much chum, and then flick the switches. Objectives complete. But there's still a big quest. So now I need to go around and blow up the other generators, which can be a messy and chaotic business too. This time, it's a zombie apocalypse. As the big quest is to turn a certain amount of people into zombies, best get started. Any people you spit at turn into companions, and the rest just turn into autonomous zombies, causing their own chaos when they die. So it's time to build a mini horde, get to an objective, and turn all those guards into corpses, which of course now doubles its usefulness, because they come back from the dead and spread the chaos. Done. Now let's flick the switches with my rotting zombie fingers. Next we come to the bit with the lethal laser again, I obviously don't like very much. I try to order my followers to run through the laser, but they just won't do it, which is inconvenient and weird because I'm sure I've done that before. I decide to sod it, I have enough health. I run in after healing, blow it up, there we go, objective complete. Let's go outside to examine the zombie apocalypse we created. Zombies. This was 4 runs using the exact same seed on the exact same level. Also, no traits were unlocked. These were the vanilla builds straight off the menu. There are 30 different characters to choose from, which all play as differently as those. And the levels and objectives will all be different the next time I play, as long as I don't choose to use the same seed, of course. And all this is before you start looking at custom characters, or mutators, or anything else. And hopefully you'll have noticed none of this was complicated. None of this was hidden behind complex menus or systems. This all exists in plain sight and is really easy to interact with. The message at this point should be clear. There are a ridiculous number of ways you can play this game. A doctor run feels like almost a completely different game to a zombie run, but they all work comfortably within the game engine. The magic really is in how these character choices are all valid and fun. Matt Dabrowski, who hope I'm pronouncing that right, could easily have chosen any one of these to build a game around, and it would have been a fun, worthwhile game. It feels exceptionally well balanced for every character, and yet the world makes no changes for them. Sure, some are harder than others, such as the bartender, but still, it's phenomenal that he's managed to pull this off. A lot of games have serious issues balancing for one type of character, never mind balancing for both a hacker and a vampire. Another good thing about Streets of Rogue is, while there are unlocks, you're good to go straight from the start. None of the unlocks are for more starting health or strength, etc. It's just more characters, wider options for weapons and traits. So you don't have that starting slog where you're essentially useless. You getting better at the game is exactly that, you getting better. You aren't in a position where you're going to fail initially because the game's systems want you to. The only reason you're going to fail at the start is because you're just learning the game. Talking of systems, Streets of Rogue is particularly good at creating chaos. Whether it's you at the centre or not. While wandering around a level, two opposing factions like the Blood and the Crate Gangsters might start fighting. Then a cop might get caught in the middle. Then all of a sudden you're watching a fight you had nothing to do with play out. And of course it's worth hanging around until the end of the fight for the loot. The third floor in each section always has those disasters, unless you turned them off. These can be a war zone, ooze, random status effects, radiation storm, a zombie invasion, honestly all sorts of crazy. And you still have to do your objectives in the middle of this chaos. And honestly, I kinda love these, and I kinda love not knowing what it's gonna be until I get in there. Mutators can considerably change the experience. You can make life easier by adding continues, making some characters that would naturally be antagonistic to you not be initially. Or you can make it harder by giving all the enemies the amount of health that you have, or having disasters every level. There's also more agnostic things like increasing the knockback for everyone, creating more destruction and chaos, and mixing up the architecture in the levels. And there's a lot of these, and they can really make quite a difference to your game. Everything so far has been taken from a single player perspective. However, it can play up to 4 players simultaneously. I realised when writing this I'd never actually tried the multiplayer, so I knew I really needed to fix this before finishing this video, otherwise it just would not be fair. So I asked a friend to join me in a game. One of the interesting first choices that changes when you play it multiplayer is what character to choose, really. Because of course now, you can choose complementary characters such as a fighter and a more stealthy or technical type. You can have one doing the less violent stuff and the other one being a protector when something goes wrong. So even before starting the game, it brings a new dynamic. I tried being a zombie because I do like the zombie. However, the zombies I made attacked my friends, so no. Then we tried a run where we both had complicated big quests, and that didn't work so well either. But then we started to get in the swing of it and chose characters that worked with complementary big quests and started having a real riot. Chatting over Discord and planning what to do with the building and then howling laughing at the ensuing chaos is really something else. It's definitely less strategic, but it is a lot more insane and a huge ton of fun. You can resurrect each other with money or half your health. You'd think this might make the game prohibitively easy, but that doesn't seem to happen. We didn't manage to make it to the part when we played, although that might have been because we were having too much fun to take the goals seriously. So co-op in this game is brilliant. It's another excellent feather in its cap, and I hope to have a 4-player game at some point to see how chaotic that ends up being. The game you see before you didn't come out the gate like this. It iterated through a long period of improvements and features that were brought in as time went on. You could say it's a perfect example of how early access can improve a game. Streets of Rogue can be as chaotic or sedate as you like. It's completely up to you. And however you decide to play it, you'll have a great time. That sequel has a lot to live up to. But given how this game got better throughout its development cycle, I feel if anyone can pull it off, he can. You should really be excited for Streets of Rogue 2. I know I am.